now call the Plan Commission of May 24th, 2022 to order. Roll call, please.
Hannah here.
Gorilla here.
Kipchinsky here.
Kava chair.
Guzikowski here.
Aldani here.
Sleeper here.
Chandler here.
Okay. And Alderman Laura could not be with us tonight. Approval of minutes of May 10th, 2022. If everybody please take a look. Hopefully you had time to review these prior. And when you are satisfied, there's no errors, omissions, or corrections or discussion, motion.
Sleeper moves to approve the minutes of May 10th, 2022.
Guzikowski is second.
Roll call. Hannah, starting with
Hannah, aye.
Gorilla eye.
Kipchinsky aye.
Kavich abstains.
Guzikowski, aye.
Aldani, aye.
Sleeper aye.
Chandler eye.
Okay. We'll now get us to significant common council actions. Doug.
Thank you. Good evening. Yes, Carrie's not here, so
I was going to say, you're out of practice. You remember how to do this?
change the channel. You're kind of stuck with me today. So she's at a conference. Well served, kind of rest for her. But the item before you is the summary of significant common council actions. And there were several. On May 17th, the council approved an ordinance amending the conditions and restrictions to allow for indoor recreational facilities, a number of different uses for the property at 140 East Rawson Avenue. This one in particular was for a private emergency services facility, the Superior Ambulance proposal, if you're familiar with that. They also approved conditions and restrictions changed to those to allow a solar farm on the property just north of PBG. Also approved a conditional use permit for a wireless telecommunications facility at 2509 West Drexel. Also approved an ordinance amending the conditions and restrictions to allow a funeral parlor with cremation services within a portion of the existing building at 7625 South Howell Avenue. They also amended the conditions and restrictions relating to signs allowed on the target building at 8989 South Howell Avenue. And they also approved changes to the municipal code affecting the official map for the Section 19 in conjunction with the CR Depot development, which is also being discussed here this evening as far as the conditions and restrictions for that development. And finally, they approved a resolution approving a CSM submitted by Mark Verhalen for the property at 500 East Oakwood Road. Are there any questions about those council actions?
No. Okay, thank you, Doug. Appreciate that. Item 5 is Board of Housing and Zoning Appeal actions. There were none to report on. And
Well, the only thing I'll note is that Lori did speak with the Board of Appeals yesterday evening as a kind of a series, instituting a series of kind of not necessarily tutorials, but just kind of explaining the new zoning code and you know, giving them a little bit more in-depth presentation about those issues.
And I'm sure that was worthwhile. There's a lot new going on there and some non-traditional changes. So appreciate that.
Yes, thank you.
Item 6 are quarterly Parks Recreation Commission actions. Next report will be June the 28th, 2022. That'll move us right into item 7A, which is new business, and it's to review conditions and restrictions on requests submitted by CR DevCo to rezone and establish plan unit development on the portions of properties at 2231, 1933 West Putes Road, 8843 South 13th, and 8950 South 20th. Doug, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Yeah, thank you. And first of all, I apologize in advance. I suspect that my presentation will be a little less thorough than you're used to, so just bear with me. But this is the kind of the second leg in the review of the property, the plan development for CR Depot on West Putes Road. The Plan Commission reviewed the rezoning petition.
Doug, the speakers aren't working, they can't hear you in the audience out here.
Okay. I wonder why not.
You can't hear anybody, it's not coming through the pieces.
Test. Now can you?
What?
Now can you? Now it's on.
Okay, I'll
There you go. Now you're on.
Make an attempt to speak a little bit louder.
Sorry about that. I might have
It wasn't
had mine
on.
off.
It wasn't on. So we're good now. Now you can hear us.
Okay. Again, just to recap, this is the kind of the second appearance before the Plan Commission to establish the conditions and restrictions to regulate the development by Sierra Devco for the properties at 2231 West Peach Road, as 8843 South 13th Street, and 8950 South 20th Street. It's the second step. The commission earlier did recommend approval of the rezoning for that development. These conditions and restrictions, again, regulate that development, and many of the things that we've been talking about in terms of the roads and emergency access, those are governed by these conditions and restrictions. And again, familiarize people, the area in the yellow, that is the area that's covered by the PUD. Again, the area on the eastern side of the development. And the concept plan, which was presented along with the rezoning. And this concept plan will also be incorporated into the PUD as a general development plan. So this does bear some weight in the sense that any plans that come before the Plan Commission for site and building plan approval have to follow that general development plan. If you haven't seen those before, the concept elevations for these single-family attached structures, and there are several different concepts, all roughly the same, just some variations in design choices, but all of them will have an attached two-car garage. There's a mix of different bedroom types in there as well, and I just want to get into kind of conditions and restrictions, since that's really what we're here to discuss this evening. And if you want to go through those, and let's see if we'd be able to answer any questions about any of them. But the first section states that the PUD only applies to the legally described property that we have before you, and that is the area that we showed in yellow as part of an original slide, and that's the area, roughly 1/3 of that entire property that we had talked about. Section 2 requires that site and building plan review is again required, that there's a development agreement required for all the public improvements that will take place within development. It requires the CSM to be recorded prior to any permitting, and it also reinforces our code language that requires a tree preservation and removal plan as well as a master landscape plan. Section 3 establishes a maximum of 22 buildings, a total of 134 units with attached garages, and it does describe how those garages are treated for the new zoning code. Also conveys and requires certain materials for exterior building materials for the new zoning code. And the Plan Commissioners will note that at the request of the applicant that this does include vinyl, so that's something that the Plan Commission may want to discuss, as well as a request for a modification for the city's brick requirement. You'll note that the city has a requirement for a minimum depth of brick of 3 inches. The applicants are requesting that be waived or modified to allow for a thin brick project in accordance with this development, and I'll let them speak to that at a later point. Establish that there be a maximum of 2 monument signs along separate frontages. Section 4 talks about the garage and parking apron requirements. You have to maintain a certain area clear for emergency vehicles. Establishes that the garage aprons themselves have to be, I believe it's a minimum of 20 feet to support an additional parking. So each one of these units will actually have 2 enclosed garage spaces as well as 2 spaces outside of those garages. Establishes minimum buffers between the public roadway, which is the cul-de-sac coming south from Puce Road, and the property to the west. It also maintains for clear areas, parking restrictions, and no connection to Gray's Lane, which we talked about, as well as a very limited emergency access to South 20th Street. I mean, it's for emergency purposes only. It's not going to be used for any other purpose than that. 5, 6, and 7, these are pretty standard. They have to meet the lighting code. There are impact fees that will be assessed for this development, and Section 7 speaks to some of the bulk and dimensional requirements. If the Plan Commission is favorable to the conditions and restrictions as presented in the staff report, a suggested motion is shown on the screen for your approval. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that the commissioners may have.
Great, thank you, Doug. Before we go to the commission, applicant, would you like to say anything, or you just want to wait on questions?
Yeah, I think we can, we'll just answer questions as they come up, or we can discuss any specific topics that you may have questions about.
That's fine. For the minutes, the applicant said they would wait for questions from the commission. So, with that, we'll put it to the commission. We'll start with Commissioner Hannah.
Yes, I have a couple questions actually. For the landscape plan, I didn't see where we discussed the last time they're gonna be replanting or replacing some of those trees, especially with the larger trunk ones.
Yeah.
So where is that here?
Well, the conditions and restrictions do call for them to prepare a tree preservation plan, and as I've been speaking with the applicants just before the meeting, that's something that they're doing at the present time. So when they come back for the detailed site and building plan approval, they will have the locations of all the trees within the impacted areas that are greater than 12 inches in diameter, and there'll be a plan to replace those.
Okay, my second question would be the vinyl versus the bricks. Why is that changes? Why do they want that change?
I'll let them address that question. I mean, it's not, we see a lot of requests for people to use a thinner material than we typically specify per code. And if you recall that the brick requirement and the depth of the brick is really grew out of some concerns we had with some commercial products that were on the market and some applications for some commercial developments. We didn't feel that it had the level of quality. This development, and I'll let the applicant speak to it, but this is a single family detached product, and the brick is really a base course along the ground level, and it's, you know, we certainly would prefer having a more robust product that's tied to the building, but I will let them describe what their request is and let the planning commission address those questions to them.
Okay. We will need your name and address, please.
Sure. Josh Walreich, 313 Surrey Lane, Lake Forest, Illinois. So I'm not sure if it's possible for me to share my screen, but I wanted to just show a couple of images of thin brick. And truthfully, once thin brick is installed, there is really no visual difference between a full, what they call a face brick, which is usually more than 3 inches, but as much as 3.5 inches. As we've stated previously, we're going for NGBS, National Green Building Standards, bronze certification, and so we're working through all of the parts and requirements to do that, you know, throughout the entire project. And there's a long list of things that we need to meet in order to do that. And so the thin brick, you know, we get points for less waste on the site and for less cost of transporting things to the site. This is a far less environmentally impactful material because it's, you know, it's much thinner, and so it kind of goes in keeping with everything we're trying to achieve with the NGBS. The only difference between a true face brick and a thin brick in terms of performance is an insulation value. Where a much thicker brick, you will get a larger insulation value, but in our design, the code's being met by the actual wall itself and not the sheathing material. So we just see this as a more responsible and economical way to get the desired look without having to spend the additional resources and dollars for a true face brick.
Yeah, I was going to ask about the installation, but you already addressed that here. So I understand what you're saying with the cost saving, and it has the same look from the outside. However, maintenance-wise, I know the vinyl collect more dust. After a while, if it's not well maintained, it doesn't have the same look as actual brick. So what is the plan to make sure that it continues to have the same clean look?
Sure, so it actually is brick. It's just a thinner brick. So the actual material and the durability is no different than a standard face brick.
Okay. So it's not vinyl? Maybe I'm misunderstanding that?
It's not, excuse me?
It's not vinyl?
Fine.
Oh,
Oh, vinyl. Oh,
Yeah.
so no, the brick is brick. We're requesting vinyl above the brick. So
siding.
I didn't realize that my screen's up here. So just in terms of the actual brick, and then I'll speak to your question about the vinyl. Our exterior elevations have a brick water table, so call it the first 3 feet are brick, and then above that is a vinyl. So the brick is exactly what you're looking at, and this is sort of what it looks like installed. So as you can see, you can't tell the difference once it's installed. And again, this is the same material as a true face brick. The vinyl, and I can quickly bring up our.
Josh, just one question real quick, and then maybe you can scroll up to that first slide of it being installed. I just wanted to make sure that that the commission, the installation of this isn't like a sheet of bricks. I mean, these are individual bricks that are applied to the building, to the face of the building. So it's not like a 4x8 sheet that they're just sticking up there. These are individual dimensional bricks that are being placed.
Think of them as taking a brick and cutting it in half and using both sides of it.
Yeah, I understand. My question wasn't about the thin brick. It was more about the
okay.
denial. So we just went more detail, which is fine.
Sure. And so your question about the vinyl and maintenance over time?
Yes, and especially it was requested to be substituted versus continuing to do brick.
Sure. So I think that it's actually a substitution, not necessarily for brick, but I think what the code currently has is a cementitious board, something like a hardy panel or a hardy plank. I think over time, again, vinyl is a very durable material. It's been used as an exterior sheathing for a very long time. If you drive up and down the streets that are nearest to this property, Gray's Lane, and you'll notice that the vast majority of those houses have vinyl as an exterior material, and then some of the houses also do have a brick water table in addition to the vinyl exterior. Today's vinyl product is it's only gotten better and better, and it's a more durable, and I don't think you'll have any. I don't think there will be any degradation in the exterior appearance of the vinyl over time.
Okay, that's all I want to make sure.
Ryan Swinger. Ryan. Oh, here we go. Sorry, Ryan Swingruber, 228 Raymond Avenue, Barrington, Illinois. And I just want to follow up on the vinyl question as well, because we'll be happy as we go through the process to share our plans and specs. And so, if you were to look at our specifications, because once again, we're trying to meet a certain national green building standard, so this information needs to be provided early on. We're calling for like a AZAC product, which is a vinyl product, which is very high end. We're calling for a certainty monogram, as well as a board and batten. And as my partner was saying, when it comes to these products, you can find things that are much cheaper, much thinner, have less longevity, but in order to meet some of the standards that we're applying for, which is impacting our financing long term, we need to meet a certain standard and a certain quality which gets reviewed. And we're more than happy to provide those specifications as we progress through this process, as well as samples, because once again, we're going to be long-term holders, so the goal is to build something of quality that requires less maintenance.
Yeah, perfect. That's it for me.
That's it?
Yep,
Dawn?
nothing for me.
Ashley?
Nothing from engineering at this time.
Okay. Chris?
I don't have a problem with the thinner brick. I understand what you're trying to go for with the type of certification, so I can understand and I could accept the thinner brick, and no issues with vinyl.
Okay. Dawn?
I have no questions at this time.
Okay. Brett?
No questions at this time.
Chauncey?
I do have a question in regards to the brick. So I want to make sure that I'm understanding. So the thin brick that you're interested in using is based on cost, yet the thinner brick that's part of the standard is based on safety. Am I understanding this correctly?
I wouldn't suggest it's necessarily safety.
Okay.
It's more durability and the method at which it's attached to the building. And it's more longevity, and really kind of grew out about some not great experiences we had with some products that were being applied for in a commercial setting, and that's why that standard was put in place.
Okay, so I just want to understand, based on the standard that's in place, Just could you give a little more information how the thin brick would meet that standard?
As I understand it, the current code or ordinance calls for a minimum 3-inch depth face brick. So we would be asking to waive that requirement in lieu of a thin brick. So we would not be meeting that requirement. And as I sit here and I look at Plan Commission, I notice that the wall behind you is indeed a thin brick. This is not a dimensional stone that's, for this size, you'd have, probably 6 to 12-inch depth stones here. So it's a very, very common substitution and yeah.
I guess I'm still unclear. How does this thin brick meet the requirements for durability or what Director Seymour was just referring to?
For durability, there is no difference than a standard brick. It is the same material as brick. It's just the cast that they make it in, instead of being 3.5 inches deep, is a cast of probably an inch to 1.5 inches deep. So you're using a lot less material to create the identical look, and therefore the way it is installed is different as well. You no longer need a structural wall to install it to. You can use a lath and a mortar and apply it, versus a brick. You'll often see those metal tabs sticking out, which help support and tie back to a much more robust structural system to support a full brick.
Okay.
So durability, material, it's the same. It's just thin.
Okay, and Director Seymour, just a quick question. When I said safety, I recall that the thinner brick is also used for fire purposes because it assists with better containing a fire if it were to occur in that area. So is that not the case? I just want to understand the difference.
Yeah, in my experience, and certainly there may be some additional fire protection benefits, but I mean, the brick material, the masonry material is the fire, it's fire resistant. I don't want to call anything fireproof, but whether it's an inch or 3 inches or 4 inches, really, and again, the genesis of why the city began regulating that was the manner in which a lot of these thin brick products were being applied. And you can go to any home improvement store and buy these sheets of masonry looking product, and that's what unfortunately some people were kind of proposing for commercial settings, and which is very much different than what is being proposed here. I mean, these are individual bricks as opposed to sheets of masonry like material that were being applied directly to building facades and on occasion did not weather very well.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. And I just want to make sure I'm understanding from the applicant. So in the conditions report, it's saying to use a 1-inch brick for the upper floors and 3-inch for the lower. So is that still the plan, or 1 inch everywhere?
Yeah, so Doug, maybe you'll be able to...
Yeah, I think the standard was written with more of a multi-story building in mind. These are single-story buildings, so it would just be at the base. And you can see on the screen before you that the area along the ground, that's where the masonry would be applied. So there really wouldn't be an upper story. It would just be along the base of the single story.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Obviously, everything is kind of going around the vinyl and brick. So, just very quickly, this is you kind of answered my question. So this stuff's about 1 inch thick brick. When you showed your picture, you had an end cap showing a 3-inch end cap brick. So they molded to make the heavy end cap.
It looks that way. It's actually just an L where it's 1 inch.
Correct, but it'll be 3 inches, so there will be some depth. The brick will actually stick out farther than where the siding begins, and you'll have a cap on the top of it.
Correct.
So basically, it won't be one wall with different material. there'll be some definition and a 3-inch depth difference.
Yeah, I mean, I think the rendering kind of shows
Shows
it
it.
best. There's some sort of cap on top.
Right.
Whether or not that, I don't know what that will end
So
up
it just doesn't go brick at the same depth, right up to the,
Correct.
whatever the siding that the commission decides. Secondly, I guess, Doug, sorry, I'm gonna throw you on the spot. I always say about being consistent here, I can't remember where, and I'm sure we've had both the brick issue come before us as well as the vinyl. Where have we allowed it in the recent past? Because I know you bring up the neighborhoods, but the neighborhoods are a little older, things have changed. I mean, we had log cabins at one time and we're not approving them. So, again, I know it's kind of a weird assessment, but things change and I like to be consistent on what we do project to project.
Well, I mean,
Best as
the
possible.
materials in the most recent example,
What do we do at Decker?
saying is that on, I think it was actually the hotel, there was some variance to the width of the brick. I don't think it was, at that point, the requirement was 4 inches, so I think we actually reduced it there.
Okay.
And
What did we do with Decker? We
we
had an
did
issue with the
allow
dormers, right?
vinyl as an accent material.
Okay. So in your dormers, is that gonna be vinyl as well, where it kinda gives you that cedar look in the upper dormer?
Yeah, you're saying in the gable where there
In
it
the
looks
gable.
like that will be a vinyl. It's called a vinyl shake.
Okay.
And then in the white, it's a board and batten look. If you look at the white rendering.
Okay.
Dan, I got a question.
Go ahead.
This is more for staff. Since these are majority gonna be vinyl, the outer, is this it then going forward? We're just gonna approve vinyl?
On
I just
future
kinda-
projects. I
Yeah,
mean,
right,
Are we
right.
setting the precedent by letting
Exactly,
vinyl?
that's exactly what I'm saying. We're setting a precedent here.
I think from my perspective, it's certainly the commission views each case individually. And from the perspective of, I mean, it's a very different discussion when you're talking about a 2-story or a 3-story building that's the bulk of which is vinyl versus a single-story building and kind of these attached residential units that we're looking at here. I mean, I think that whether the commission decides to, require the masonry product, whether it's hardy plank or what have you, that's certainly within their discretion. And I don't believe it's precedent setting. I think that, it's certainly, you have to look at it in a given situation. And if you feel that it makes sense, given the scale of the building and the materials that are present in the building, the pallets, and, the impact, the visual impact upon adjacent properties.
I have a question. So what you're saying is correct, it's just, we have to have bases, like if someone wanna come apply, like those developers here, based on what? Do they have to meet certain height requirement for buildings? These has to be set up so they know if they need an exception, like here, or,
Well, the way the code is set up is that the planning commission is able to issue waivers to architectural requirements on a 3/4 majority, provided that additional features are incorporated in the site as kind of an offset for that. So maybe the more appropriate question is that, what additional features are you proposing for your site over and above that would kind of offset the use of the vinyl siding?
Sure. I think the main thing that we talked about was the NGBS certification. I think also one of the important considerations is our overall density and the open space of the project itself. So I think that we're, I think we were about 2.9 units to an acre over. And if you look at the concept development plan that's up on the screen, we've gone to far lengths to try to maintain as much of the surrounding open space and vegetation as possible. The vast majority of our development is occurring on the area of the site that is currently being farmed. And we've also far exceeded setbacks to adjacent properties as well. So we could have proposed a more dense development here, and we just thought that this was the right scale for the space and the right use for the neighborhood and kind of respected the adjacent properties.
And just to follow that up, because we're talking about precedent and what we're providing as in lieu of, I guess, these materials that were the expectation or standard prior to us asking for this exception. At the 2.9 units per acre, I think one of the exceptional things that we're providing is we have these garden courtyards that we speak to in the memos that we've provided to Planning Commission and the Planning Department. And the setback between building facades and these garden courtyards that you can see are prominent in the center of the site are, roughly approximately 60 feet. And so we're going to have a significant amount of green space, open space, and landscape space as well per our landscaping plan. And so that differentiates us from a traditional apartment community where, as you'll see, 2 to 3 stories and a lot of a sea of asphalt surface parking. And so I would say that the standard here is not many developers would come in and say, we're going to be low density, and on top of that, we're going to create something, an exterior amenity that differentiates ourselves and provides a community that's unique to Oak Creek and to the residents that will live here. And so that doesn't come without a cost. We are on the hook to maintain all the landscaping and snow removal. And if we truly want to create these garden courtyards, it'll require maintenance and it'll require upfront cost from a landscaping standpoint. So I would say that's an important design attribute that's, in lieu of having a fiber cement or a 3.5-inch brick. And I think those things are important, but they're much more prevalent when you have much higher density and massing. That depth comes into play. These are single-story, low-density structures, and I think, we're asking for that exception because of the other amenities that we're providing from an exterior standpoint.
I do have another question. There was reference to this certification multiple times. You said NGBS. What exactly is that?
It stands for National Green Building Standard.
So what is the certification? How is that linked to the 1-inch brick and mostly vinyl?
So in regards to the vinyl, I'd have to look. So there's different chapters of the National Green Building Standards that go all the way up to I think 14 or 15. And each chapter speaks to a certain thing, whether it's insulation or energy consumption or material waste. And so my partner was speaking to one of the chapters, and I'm not going to quote which one. If I had to guess, I think it's 7, but it talks about the materials used on site and minimizing transportation costs, waste of construction materials, and things of that nature. And so the thin brick we were referencing was applicable to that chapter. So I want to be clear, though, in order to get this certification, there's a bronze, silver, gold, and platinum. And so there are many things that we have to do to meet that certification. This is just one of those aspects, but it is a relevant one in the decision making.
And just to follow up on that point, in discussions with staff, there's a couple of different reasons why we're requesting these materials. I mean, we think it's appropriate given the surroundings, but in lieu of that, it's not necessarily a one-to-one correlation that without these materials we can't get NGBS. We can still potentially get NGBS, but that is a significant hurdle, and it's stated throughout many different parts of I think the comprehensive plan and other documents for the city that environmentally conscious development is something the city is very much trying to promote. And so we're embracing that, and in doing so we incur costs to do that, and one of the ways we're trying to offset some of those costs is by using materials that we think don't degrade the quality of the project or the visual appeal of the project, but cost a little bit less, candidly. And the thin brick is just as high quality a product as a full face brick. And many municipalities don't have a restriction against a thin brick. In Oak Creek there is one, so we have to work within that. And that's the genesis of this request.
And the brick part I understand. I'm just trying to understand the amount of vinyl as well.
Yeah, so proportionately with a single-story building, there's only so many ways that you can kind of cut this up and still have it look appropriate. on a single-story building, as you look at that rendering, having and you'll see this on many single-family homes, a masonry water table with a transition to a secondary material above that. And classic architecture has a stone base and then a material above it. And so in this case, we have a stone base and vinyl above it. And the proportions, we feel, are appropriate for a single-story building.
So just another question for Director Seymour. So what amount, or per the standard, what is acceptable for the amount of vinyl? Should it be 20%?
Yeah, I don't know if there's a set standard that says, if you use this material, you can only use so much of it.
Mhm.
I will say that it was, and again, on the buildings that we were referring to on 27th Street, these were much bigger buildings, obviously, and taller, and the massing was a lot larger than that. And the commission chose to utilize those as accent materials only. Probably in the scope of things, the area of the accent materials on those buildings was probably equal to or comparable with what's being proposed, as kind of the main use of vinyl on these. Remember, these are single story, and with I believe it's a three foot base next to me there, and with the fenestration in the windows. I think if you look at the concept elevations, and you think of in terms of, and it's very, architecture by nature is very subjective, right? So we love to put standards on everything, and in many cases as a government we need to do that. But at the end of the day, this commission is charged with reviewing and approving architectural standards and developments that look good and stand the test of time. I think that's the metric that this commission should be using in their deliberations this evening.
Okay. Oh, is that it? Okay. Okay, so going back to it, kind of got off track there. They said kind of sell it and kind of put the green courtyards in there. You were going to have to put them in anyways to get this project through, whether you use vinyl or you use whatever. So that ain't really carrying a lot of weight with me there, to tell you the truth. Your certification, and I'm sorry, repeat it again.
NGBS.
NGBS. It's to save material and all that stuff. It's cost savings. It's cost savings for you guys. Does this translate into cost savings or energy savings for anybody that lives here going forward, like a LEED certification? Or does that certification make these products any more energy efficient than if we had you do the full 3-inch brick or the masonry siding or wood siding?
No, because the energy efficiency is driven by the rating of the wall. And so, as discussed, we're meeting the R value, your thermal insulation, by the wall assembly.
So you're meeting our minimum code, which probably is the same thing whether it's wood or masonry.
Correct. And then in terms of energy efficiency being transferred on to the end user, that's absolutely true. So the HVAC system, for example, has to meet a certain efficiency. And so those efficiencies translate to the end utility bill. Same as if we have to provide appliances, they have to meet a certain certification. And so that's all outlined in the National Green Building Standards. It's just not construction waste. It's everything from your thermal rating to the efficiency of all your appliances, to your HVAC, to water usage, things of that nature.
No, I do appreciate you guys taking that into consideration and everything like that. I just want to make sure there's a benefit going forward. And again, I like to be consistent project to project and kind of racking my brain on a similar one, and I'm not really coming up with anything because everything we've done has been on a larger scale.
Yeah, you're right, Mayor, and that's the fact that we didn't have this type of housing option or residential option available. And a lot of things that you've been seeing, quite frankly, have been larger scale apartment developments or commercial developments that probably I think need to be viewed in a little bit different light than the scale of this development.
So Doug, this, just for my own curiosity, typically it's all shingled asphalt roof on a residential. Does our codes specify, or do they need a majority for a tin roof? or say a tile roof.
Yeah, I mean, if you'll recall, given that same example we were using the development on 27th Street, they actually had proposed a metal roof on
A
that.
metal roof,
And the plan commission,
because it wasn't
could
an
not
approved
approve that.
material at the
Right.
time. Okay, that helps. Helps with me. Okay, for the most part, it is very different. It's, you know, I hate to make the comparisons. Doug says you do have to take it on a case-by-case basis. So I mean, from a consistency standpoint, we don't really have the product here. Again, the brick is going to be just as durable as what you have. It's our case on the siding. I do wish we had an example. I'm sorry, the bad example I got is my neighbor's siding after 20 years. It didn't look, sorry guys, if you're watching, but siding didn't look very good after 20 years.
The example I'd like to see is the, in the gable, this.
Yeah.
No offense, I can't imagine it looks very
Real.
good, very real. It's just molded vinyl to look like,
Cedar shake.
yeah, that's what I keep looking at, and I don't know if that was talked about with you guys, an option there, you know, when we talk about accent materials, kind of a flip, you have the vinyl as your main material and something different to make it look like the quality that these zoning and all these requirements were made for. When you start molding vinyl to look like different material, it starts to look cheap.
Right, like when you mold it into brick.
Right, right, and I don't have a problem with the brick, right?
No,
I mean,
no.
that's what we're talking about, right?
But-
The sheet of brick that looks bad and doesn't, I'm not saying it won't last, it just, we're talking about the look alone. You're using vinyl to look like cedar, cedar shake, and that's the one where I think we're just going too far with the vinyl. That's my opinion.
And, and you need that breakup, because if it was just siding, it would look like.
Agreed.
Yeah, if you look at the next
Yeah.
image, the white image is a board and batten. Can you go one more, please?
That-
If it's in,
That's vinyl also,
yes.
as well.
Can you speak on
That
the
looks,
vinyl, please?
tell you the
Yeah,
truth,
sorry.
that looks better.
Yeah, so this image is a board and batten, and it's a vinyl product as well. And here you can see the board and batten is not only on the lower elevation, but it's also continued up into the gable. And I understand your concern about the shake. I can promise you, if we lay our hands on the product that ends up being specified and it looks as you worry it may, we wouldn't use it. We would end up changing the material. Like,
Really? Even after we approved it, you'd tear it all off?
No.
I mean, we're making that decision tonight,
We
so.
wouldn't install it. We would look at it first.
But that's a subjective statement. That's you saying, hey, this is exactly what we wanted it to be, and we're
Sure.
saying, it's not what we want it to be. So, I mean, no offense, I appreciate the
Sure.
sentiment, that doesn't really mean much to me, because it's completely subjective.
Well, let me ask you a question, Commissioner. If that gable area was, when we looked at the lap horizontal siding, if that gable area had this look up, if the shakes went away and you had a vertical board and batten look up there to highlight that area, would that be something you'd be objecting to? Because honestly, this is something that we were working today with our architect and looking at other renderings and colors based upon where we're headed with this discussion. So, supporting what my partner's saying, we are being proactive in this to make sure that when we actually get the physical materials, does it meet the standard? Because once again, these are Class A apartments, so we're expecting top of the market rents, and so we have to deliver something that somebody was proud to live in. And so, I guess my question would be, if the commissioner is concerned about the shake, we'd be willing to show you another version of the rendering that would be in this blue, and that would have a board and batten look in the gable to highlight that area, which, in my opinion, it's all subjective. I think that's a better end look. I like the white buildings better, but we just can't build one building throughout or one color scheme. It'd look too
Sure.
cookie cutter.
Understood. Yeah, I would like to see it, and there's several other commissioners here, I wouldn't mind hearing their opinion on that.
Anybody?
I agree.
Okay.
Okay, so I mean, going forward, as written, We would need a 2/3 majority to approve the thin brick and the vinyl. Then once we bless it, they can use it in any configuration they want, whether it's shake or board and batten you're calling it, or so. We have to be good with that. and no offense, but I like the white renderings as well a little better.
And recall as well, I mean, this does come back to the plan commission for approval of site and building plans.
It does.
Yes.
Okay, so we get sort of one more kick at the cat at it. So
And at that
I think I feel better with that. Go ahead.
And at that time, we can have additional renderings and also bring in actual material samples.
And that would really help. Like I said, my experience with vinyl. I don't want to bring up my neighbors again, but I just did. But it didn't hold up very well at all.
Sure. Doug, is vinyl used anywhere on the Seasons project?
Which one's the Seasons?
I don't recall.
I don't think so.
No.
That Decker got a little bit of it for accent.
Yeah,
Because we don't allow like LP siding either. It's another one we don't let.
Yeah, I couldn't give you a definitive answer on that.
Okay.
So. Okay, commissioners, are we ready? We will, as Doug said, site and building plans will come back, so we will get another look at it. I think that puts me in a better place.
Yeah, we'll be further along at that point to be able to bring
Yeah.
the materials.
And again, guys, I ain't gonna apologize for giving you a hard time. This is our job. And again, we want conditions and standards going forward here, so.
So are we gonna revise, how are we gonna do the suggestion motion to reflect that, or? how are we gonna
I
do
don't
that?
think we have to, as long as we're good with the vinyl product, we'll just
Vinyl
get a look
product.
at it and building site and building plans, correct?
So the item D3 of the conditions and restrictions does say at the present time that vinyl may be utilized as an exterior building material as part of building plans reviewed and approved by the plan commission.
Yeah. So we're approving vinyl and we're approving the brick. They're gonna come back at the next time through, the building samples and the renderings of what it would look like, whether it's what we've seen with the gray and white ones or some modification thereof.
Are there,
Clear as mud?
Yep.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Do we have to identify like the amount?
No.
No.
Okay.
not at this time.
Okay. Well, how will we know if they change that material or not?
They're coming through with site and building.
Site and building plans.
Okay.
They'll be through here one more time.
I want to make sure I'm understanding, because if it says vinyl,
Right, we're saying vinyl's okay, but then we're gonna get a look at how they're utilizing it. So it'll be different, the material will be chosen, but the look will be what we'll be judging you on. All right?
Yep.
Okay, who's gonna be the daring soul to do a motion?
Guzikowski makes a motion that the plan commission recommends that the common council adopts the conditions and restrictions as a part of the plan unit development request requested by Sierra Devco LLC for portions of the property at 2231 West Cutes Road, 8843 South 13th Street, and 8950 South 20th Street.
Seifert seconds.
Roll.
Before the commission votes on that,
Yes.
I would just be specific again, since the waiver on the brick requirement was not on the conditional conditions and restrictions, that if that is something the commission is amenable to, that you include that in the second as part of the motion.
So
As stated,
include the thin brick and the vinyl.
including thin brick and vinyl.
Well, the vinyl's already in there.
Oh, it is? Okay, thank you, Doug.
And second concurs.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Roll call beginning with Dawn.
Carrillo, aye.
Kupczynski, aye.
Kavich, aye.
Guzikowski, aye.
Hold on again.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler, no.
Hannah, aye.
Okay, guys, thank you much. Thank you. Moving on, 7B. Review a request submitted by Phil Papuro, CW Papuro, to rezone the properties at 7030 South 13th from B2 Community Business to B3 Office and Professional Business to B3 Office and Professional Business. Was that a typo?
I don't know.
Or did I just-
We'll certainly.
But we'll sort that out.
It will make more sense once you see that the next two items actually are part and parcel to each other.
Okay.
You had an existing property which had a split zoning of both B2 and B3. And the end users of both parcels now are looking to redivide those such that we can use the westernmost as part of the office building, which would be the B3, which is the subject of this particular agenda item, as well as using the eastern portion as manufacturing for future expansion of a business in that location, which would be part of the second agenda item. So you can kind of see right here, there was a CSM that needs to be recorded, which would turn this into two lots, and the existing zoning does not follow that boundary. Hence the need to change the zoning to allow for, one zoning, one lot. So lot 1, which is shown as in yellow, which is the subject of this agenda item, would be zoned B3 Office Professional Business. Lot 2, which you'll see as part of the next agenda items, would be zoned M1 Manufacturing. That is consistent with the comprehensive plan with respect to that, and it is really, I don't want to say correcting the situation, but just that we don't like to have that split zoning because, if you have two different standards, two different code requirements that apply to one property. So it's really important that these types of issues are cleaned up, especially if the easternmost property is going to be developed in the future, that we don't have those remnant type zonings there.
Okay. All right. I don't know if the applicant's with us, anything? You want to say anything or just wait on questions? Wait on questions, okay. Let's start. Chauncey, you want to start us off this time?
No questions, thank you.
Brad?
No questions?
Don?
No questions.
Chris?
No questions.
Ashley?
No questions, thank you.
Dawn?
Nothing for me.
And Christine?
Nothing here.
No, I think Doug summed it up pretty well. It's pretty standard stuff, so nothing for me. Got by easy. Motion then, please, on 7B.
Secret moves that the planning commission recommends to the common council that the property at 7030 South 13th Street be rezoned from B2 Community Business and B3 Office and Professional Business to B3 Office and Professional Building after a public hearing with the following conditions: that the certified survey map approved by the Common Council on February 14th, 2022, resolution number 12306-021-422 is recorded prior to submission of current applications.
Guzikowski will second.
Roll call. Beginning with Ashley.
Kupczynski, aye.
Bukavich, aye.
Guzikowski.
Ladani, aye.
Secret aye.
Chandler, aye.
Hannah, aye. Grillo, aye.
Okay. Item C is a related piece, as Doug said. It's to review a request submitted by Phil Papuro to CW Papuro Inc. to rezone the property at 1190 West Rawson Avenue from B3 Office and Professional Business to M1 Manufacturing to M1 Manufacturing. Doug?
Thank you. As we kind of spoke of with respect to the last agenda item, this is the easternmost parcel and you can see in the location map in the red that there's a split zoning on this property right now, with the M1 on the easternmost portion and the B3 on the western portion, which contains that office building. Under the terms of that CSM that was just referenced in the prior motion, the two parcels would be created which separate those two. And again, the need for a distinct zoning, one parcel, is what is being accomplished by these two rezoning requests. And staff supports the proposed rezoning.
Okay. Questions, Christine?
Nothing here.
Dawn?
Nope,
Ashley?
no questions.
Chris? None. Don?
No.
Fred?
No,
Chauncey?
No question.
Nothing from me either. So, motion please.
Oldani moves that the Plan Commission recommends to the Common Council that the property at 1190 West Rawson Avenue be rezoned from B3 Office and Professional Business and M1 Manufacturing to M1 Manufacturing after a public hearing with the following condition. That the certified survey map approved by the Common Council on February 14th, 2022, resolution number 12306-021422 is recorded prior to submission of permit applications.
Guzekowski, second.
Roll call, and I will begin. Aye.
Guzekowski, aye.
Oldani, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler, aye.
Hannah, aye.
Grillo, aye.
Kipchinsky, aye.
And 7D is temporary sign plan review. Review a request submitted by Brian Parrish, Pavilion Real Estate Corp. to install temporary signs in excess of 30 days on the property at 10523 South Howell Avenue and 10304 South Oakview Parkway. Lori?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, both parcels are located in Oakview Business Park. The applicant is requesting 2 4x8 temporary signs, one for each property. And we have that up on the screen. The signs meet setbacks required. This is a pretty simple request. So they are requesting to have these signs up until December 31st of 2022.
Okay.
So just maybe to add a little bit more flavor to that. For those of you who may not be familiar with the situation, the city actually purchased parcel 1, which is the northernmost parcel from West Park, and so we do own that property, and have entered into an agreement with the owners of the property to the south to jointly market those parcels for the type of building, type of businesses that we all feel are consistent with the Oakview Business Park. This additional advertising sign, the real estate signs, are being requested for a period for the remainder of the year to allow for the adequate marketing of those proposals. The reason why the commission is being requested to approve these is that they extend beyond the 30 days, which is allowed to be permitted by the director, and periods in excess of those 30 days must be approved by the planning commission.
Great, thank you, Doug. We will go to questions. Chauncey?
No questions, thank you.
Fred?
No questions.
Don?
No questions.
Chris?
No question.
Ashley?
No questions, thank you.
Dawn?
Nothing.
Christine?
Nothing here.
Nothing on me either, so, motion please on D.
Seifert moves that the Plan Commission approves the sign plan submitted by Brian Parrish, Big Real Established Corporation to be located at 10523 South Howell Avenue and 10304 South Oakwood Parkway with the following conditions. The sign shall not be illuminated. 2, include setbacks, dimensions, and limit 1 per property. 3, that the sign shall be removed by December 31st, 2022.
Guzekowski, second.
Roll call, beginning with Chris.
Guzekowski, aye.
Oldani, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler, aye.
Hannah, aye.
Grillo, aye.
Kipchinsky, aye.
Gavich, aye. And item E, plan review. Review site and related plans submitted by Jill Liniger, Oak Creek Public Library for an exterior automated locker system adjacent to the west elevation of the Civic Center building at 8040 South 6th Street. So, Doug?
Thank you. The request is to install a contactless, I'm saying that right, library locker for the pickup of materials from the library. And I'll let Jill speak to the purpose for that. But essentially, since you are proposing an accessory structure or something outside of the city building, we are asking the commission to approve those plans, A, because it is a city building, and B, because we kind of view this in the same terms that we do something like a red box or something like that, where we require other people to, in certain similar circumstances, to come before the commission for approval. This particular unit, if you will, is being proposed to be installed along the western elevation of the library along 6th Street. The dimensions are shown in your staff report as well as the exhibit on your screen. And again, it's to be utilized for people who are picking up materials during off hours or choose to access their materials in a manner that does not require contact with staff.
Okay, thank you, Doug. Jill, any explanation before we start? Or description, or whatever you want to call it?
Yes, thank you very much. So as Doug said, this is a contactless pickup option for library patrons. It's actually a grant that we received from the Milwaukee County Federated Library System, so there are several other libraries in the county that will be getting this system as well. It's to go along with our contactless curbside pickup. During COVID, we created a number of different options for people who would like to be able to continue to use the library without having to come into the building. So this is just another option for them. Additionally, for people who work or maybe have health issues or mobility issues, they can't always get to the library during normal library hours. So this is another option for them to come pick up their holds at any time throughout the day.
Okay. Questions for Jill? Christine?
Yes, I know it's just an odd question, but is there any way to make sure that this machine, I'm just gonna call them, not to be vandalized somehow? Because they're outside, so you never know.
So we have been talking with the IT department about possibly putting a new about locating another camera. The machine does need data, so we could talk with them about adding a camera. The exterior cameras point the other direction right now, but there's some options to add some security to that.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yep.
Okay. Dawn?
No, looks good.
Ashley?
No questions, thank you.
Chris?
No questions for me.
Don?
Just one question, I love it. What about lighting right there? Was there any thought put into that, or?
So there is exterior lighting above it.
Okay.
Because it's right under the overhang for the west entrance
You
still.
can kind of see that in the
Got a bollard.
Yeah, I see the one right there, okay, all right. Yep, just, the bollard too, okay, yeah, wonderful, thank you.
Yep.
Fred?
No questions.
Jocelyn?
I do have a question. Since the outside, it looks really nice and very well designed with the brick and the colors and all, is there a way to help this blend in? Because it's really standing out differently than its surrounding items.
Yeah, and maybe Jill, if I could take a swing at that, and certainly feel free to. And I think the color choice, which I'm not sure if it translates really well to the screen or what you have, is being chosen to do just that, is to blend in with the facilities. And as a matter of fact, there has been some discussion, actually as part of a public art initiative that the city's promoting, that we may be able to wrap this in some type of public art that's yet to be determined. So kind of a little bit different train of thought there, rather than trying to have it blend in. There might be an option to actually have it stand out with something that's a public art piece.
That would be nice.
Yeah. Maybe make it look like a big book.
That would be great. That would be cool. Good idea.
Where do you put it?
Actually, City of Milwaukee have done this. They have those outdoor ones that just got installed, and they have those groups that comes and do those walls art. They already did them, so you can just take a ride there. Take a look.
So Jill, I got some questions, and you're probably not going to have the answers for it. So obviously this thing probably needs electrical power, and you said probably a data cable too. They ain't gonna run pipes down our wall and make it.
No, so actually the electric is already there.
I see the outlet there.
And if you come onto the inside of the building on that wall, there's actually already data there too. So all they have to do is go through and pull the data to that electrical outlet. So I've already talked with maintenance. It's going to be a really easy install.
Okay, because pipes can look very nice, electrical pipes, if they're done correctly. But on that beautiful wall in our building, it just, you start to do that, it really degrades the integrity of the building, so.
Yeah, and it worked out perfectly, just that location. It fits nicely, there's already lighting that doesn't have to be installed, the data and the electrical's right there. So it really was a perfect location based off all the other exterior places we could have put it.
Another great service for our library.
Mhm.
Very good, very good. I have nothing else.
I have one quick
Oh, go
question.
ahead, Fred.
Do you load this from the back on the inside, or do you have to load from the outside?
So you actually load it from the outside, and then when the way that it works is a patron will actually choose this as a hold pickup location. So they'll choose that they want to pick it up from our lockers when they put a book on hold. When their holds come in, the staff will then take their items, check them out to them right away, then put them in the locker. The patron will then get notified either via email or via text message that says, and be given a code that they'll then enter into the keypad. They'll enter in their code into the keypad, and whatever locker their items are in, the door will swing open. They'll retrieve their items and shut the door.
Sounds great.
It's a really neat system. We went and saw it at another library, and it was a really cool setup.
Thank you.
Yep.
Cool. With that, motion.
I'll go. The plan commission, that the plan commission approves site-related plans submitted by Jill Lininger, Oak Creek Public Library for a book locker system on the property of 8040 South 6th Street with the following conditions. 1. All relevant code requirements remain in effect. 2. One locker system measuring 42.52 inches by 25 inches by 78.38 inches is allowed on the west side of the property in the location shown on the map. 3. There shall be no additional lights for the locker system. 4. No signs are included as part of this approval. However, identification on the system as part of the overall design shall be permitted. 5. That all detailed final plans are submitted in digital format to the Department of Community Development prior to submission of permit application.
Guzikowski, second.
Roll call, beginning with Don.
Hold aye.
Secret eye.
Chandler, aye.
Hannah, I.
Krill, aye.
Kapczynski, aye.
Havich, aye.
Guzikowski.
Great.
Thank
Jill,
you.
before you go, just really quick, I just want to take some privilege here. Received an email about Jill in the library, and we had a young lady going through an internship, correct? And she came and wanted to shadow what was going on at the library and see what was going on, and Jill offered up her services, and the young person came in, and the mother wrote just incredibly what a great experience it was for this young person. And she got to go to our large leadership team meeting as well. And it was just an incredible experience for this person. I just want to take the privilege to thank you personally. It doesn't surprise me that this happened because, you know, this is the quality of our staff all the way around, particularly at the library. But again, you're one of these special people that make Oak Creek very special. So thank you.
Thank you.
Is
Appreciate
there
it.
any way we can clone you to this?
If you figure that out, let me know. It would
I
really
will.
help with my overall life.
But again, thank you very much.
Thank you.
So, okay, great. Item F, review site, buildings, and related plans for Avonshine Park Pavilion for the project located at 1321 East Drexel Avenue.
Yeah, I'll
All
take
right,
that
Doug.
one. And this is a bit different in the sense that you're hearing from me both as reviewer, as in your traditional capacity as reviewer of site building plans for developments within the city, as well as the owner, because the Plan Commission is charged by statute with reviewing all municipal buildings and park developments and things of that nature. So a little bit different, but we're approaching it from the same perspective. The proposal is for a park pavilion for Avonshine Park, and you may have heard it referred to in earlier iterations as a beer garden. It's one and the same. It is a building that is being proposed to be developed by the city that could be utilized for a beer garden. And it roughly has, and we'll go get the plans in a bit, but it's really at the kind of northwest corner of Avonshine Park, just north of the existing parking lot, between the existing parking lot on the detention basin, a total of about 3,500 square feet of enclosed space, which translates into a code capacity, and so don't read too much into this, it's per code. But depending on how the building is utilized, inside you could be between 75 people if they were all at tables to 225 if they were all standing up. So just use that as a range. Outside in the covered space, you'll see when we show you the architectural elevations how that translates. It'll allow for between 115 and 347 persons. And finally, in a gravel area just to the west of that, there is an additional lawn space. There's a lot more room for larger gatherings, for concerts, what have you, however the city chooses to utilize that space down the road. And again, that takes place, and I'll show the site plan. Also included an expansion of the parking lot to 194 spaces. So this is the site plan. You can kind of see the existing parking lot is the north 2 rows here. The southerly 2 rows would be additional parking spaces that we developed. Right now there's one entrance to the parking lot off of the main Park Drive. There's to be one entrance to the Park Drive, but that we've split off into 2 separate entrances to the parking lot. As I understand it, we are working on, and I believe, as far as I know, have been successful in getting some grants to allow for some development of green infrastructure within that parking lot, pavers, what have you, which will add to the sustainability of this development, as well as provide some additional benefit to the overall project budget. The building itself would be north of that. Again, the detention pond being immediately north of that. You'll have the building, which is enclosed, that can overhang, that's the space that's undercover, the gravel area, on the area to the west, which is essentially a great lawn, which would allow for additional capacity. The thing that you see at the kind of the northwest corner, that's a permanent stage, which is not part of this proposal, not part of this immediate development phase, but something that could be added in the future as funding permits. You can see by the landscaping plan, this borne out in a little bit greater detail, the difference between the building itself, the overhang, the gravel, and the grass, as well as the changes that are being proposed to the parking lot. No changes to the stormwater management basin that are being proposed. The basin was sized correctly to accommodate these proposed additions. There would be additional infrastructure work, primarily water and sewer, that would need to be brought to the site for use, and the development agreement is, I don't know, do we need a development agreement with ourselves?
I hope not, but we will see.
Either way, I think we're covered there.
Yeah.
But we're exploring options to kind of tie that in with planned development to the west of this as well. You can kind of see the building here. It's a little bit tough to see with some of the architect's lines in here, but see the main beer hall, the gathering space, with restrooms which would be accessible not only when the building is open, but they would be accessible when the building is closed and could be closed off from the inside of the building, so they could just be used for baseball games, what have you, when the facility is not open. Allows for spaces for concessions, in anticipation of having a vendor for the beer garden. Allows for a cooler, and allows for seasonal storage, whether that be for the vendor or for the park system. The storage yard, which would contain the trash receptacles, what have you, and hopefully any transformers, would be screened entirely by means of some architectural screening, which I'll show you shortly. These are the plans and elevation, and this is a classic example of where you look at the plans and elevation and say, wow, that doesn't look special at all. But rest assured that when we translate those into actual renderings, the result is much more dramatic. Again, you see the interior of the building. This is looking kind of from the northwest to the southeast. Here's the beer garden building, the pavilion building with the overhang and the public spaces, the gravel that would be used for the beer garden and other public gatherings. Here are the restrooms that would be available, again, when the building is closed. Looking from the southeast to the northwest, you can kind of see this area that would be screened off for mechanicals, for trash, what have you. The building itself, which would allow a good deal of natural light in the building with the clerestory windows facing to the south, as well as kind of, again, the overhang, which provides for additional capacity undercover, and for the additional gravel area that has a series of posts and lights. If any of you have been to other beer gardens, and particularly the one in Kenosha that is kind of set up to provide that ambience and that atmosphere for those gatherings. So with that in mind, and I know I've rushed through this, but I'd be happy, I'm actually very happy to answer any questions and to talk about this further in greater detail, because I think this is a great project that really fulfills one of the strategic objectives of the city's conference, that kind of explain a strategic plan, and really seeks to implement some of the provisions of the Avonshine Park Plan. So staff is recommending that the plans be approved, subject to the notations on your screen. And again, I am familiar with the project, Lori's familiar with the project. We'd be happy to answer any questions that the commission has.
Okay, thank you, Doug. Leah, you kind of sat through, you're on parks, want to say anything or
Oh, you got this, sorry.
anything? You got to do the microphone if you're gonna.
No, okay. If there's a question that comes up that I want to answer.
Okay. Christine, you want to start us on?
Yes, I'm actually looking at the map of on my phone for the location of this park, and I see it's just across from the American Marble Restoration, or this subdivision there. So yeah, the subject property just across. So it seems like there is like a building, like residence, quite a bit there. So has the traffic, especially during the summertime, been evaluated to make sure that the capacity on Drexel Avenue and the turning left or right or however it is going to be has been evaluated and looked at, or is it just too early in the process?
I think the answer is both. I think we've had some very serious discussions about what that looks like when that road is reconstructed, and understand that there's some efforts to move that ahead in the next few years. Right now, the park is heavily utilized. The park has been utilized for beer gardens, and there has been some overflow of parking on Drexel Avenue. That's why we're expanding that parking lot. That's why we actually do have some other options available for additional parking should the need arise. But I mean, you're right. The long-term solution is to really improve that main park access road and to make changes to Drexel Avenue, which would improve traffic flow in that location. One thing I failed to mention is that as part of the development, the duplex condominium development to the west, that there would be a second point of access provided for emergency purposes, such that both the park would have a second point of access as well as the condominium development.
That was actually my second question. So you answered it, and I'm gonna leave this up to Ashley. You wanna answer now or later, but is there a signal, maybe like temporary signal, to be used during this time can be utilized to kind of control traffic to make sure there is no conflict?
Right, so we are looking at options, and that is something that we're definitely considering. The entrance to that development is right in line with Quincy Avenue, so there will be a four legs to that intersection. So that's something that we are looking at implementing with this development. If it maybe be right turn lanes exclusive, left turn lanes, maybe a roundabout. I mean, we're kind of throwing everything out there. We have actually the last couple of years attempted to apply for grants through WSDOT funding for Drexel Avenue, just for different types of measures, traffic calming, intersection improvements. Unfortunately, we have not secured any grants yet. We keep throwing them out there and trying and just seeing what we can do to kind of increase safety along Drexel as a whole.
Yeah, also the pedestrian crossings, I'm sure it's going to be very heavily used in this area, so we want to make sure that the pedestrians also are being considered part of that.
Absolutely. Yeah, and we've got like the Oak Leaf Trail crosses just west of there, so there's a lot going on in this area that engineering is well aware of, and now's a good time to start implementing some of those measures.
Great. My last question is the noise during the summertime. Is this going to be causing issues to the resident across the street, or is it just so far indoors that it's just not going to cause any issues?
Sure. I mean, I'm not aware, and I suspect that there might be some isolated incidences right now, having had beer gardens at a location, rather having had baseball games at a location. I live not too far from there. I can hear them, and I can't say that it's been a nuisance. But the way that this is being oriented is such that that stage, that future stage that we talked about, goes to the south, and there's quite some distance between that and the predominant residential areas. I'd be probably more concerned if we were pointing the stage and the great deal of the activity and noise to the west, because there is a closer subdivision in that location.
But you know, noise travel too.
Oh, sure, I can hear you.
And it will be subject to the park hours.
Yeah.
I was just gonna ask that, so I think we're all good. Thank you.
Okay. Dawn?
I have a question. Why did we choose gravel and not pave that area?
That was actually, if I may, that was one of the things that was, we were advised that by our potential vendor, is to have that area that, it just worked out very well in other beer gardens that he has been connected with. You know, I don't know that it offers any benefit in terms of stormwater management, but it was just something that he's had success with in the past.
Yeah, because I'm assuming it's handicap accessible, but gravel's difficult, strollers, things like that. It's hard to, navigate on gravel.
Yeah, and recall that there's probably a better, if you can see here, the building and the area undercover, that's all paved, that's concrete. It's the area west of that's the gravel, and then you get into the lawn area.
But the majority of the seating area is gravel, other than inside. Even inside is pretty limited.
By area, yes, I think in terms of numbers of patrons, I think there's a substantial portion within that covered area. Probably when you look at that, anywhere between 190 to 400 people that could be accommodated within the building and the covered area without extending on the gravel.
One quick question, also, is it rentable?
It is being designed so that, yes, it would be rentable. I can't speak as to the terms of the vendor agreement with that, because we don't have that in place right now, but that's really one of the principles when we're looking at this building. We're not designing a beer garden. We're designing a public space that could be used, in the off season or in the event that, things change and we don't have a vendor for that. It is designed as a public space, similar to the other pavilions that we have. I guess Lake Vista would be really comparable to that. I think it's probably got a little bit more capacity than Lake Vista, but we envision it being used for a variety of events aside from any potential beer garden, whether it be for the warming house that we may have had at Drexel, where it allows us some options that for events and facilities that maybe outgrown Drexel Square. Just another tool that we have, and the whole toolkit for economic development, for festivals, for public engagement. So first and foremost is being designed as a public space. Certainly there are some things in there, the cooler comes to mind, that you probably wouldn't be putting in there if you didn't have a beer vendor in there. But again, that is being designed first and foremost for use by the public.
That's all I got.
Okay. Ashley?
I guess on these plans here, it does show concrete pavement, like the same material. So is that something different from what we're shown as far as the gravel that was being referred to?
I was of the understanding when talking to the architect that it was gravel, but I can clarify that.
Okay, yeah, that'd be great.
Okay. Chris?
I have no questions. I do sit on the committee, so I've had a chance to see these renderings as they've been developed.
Okay. Don?
Yep, so I think my gravel question was answered, so we're not sure that's gravel?
Now I'm questioning it.
Yeah. I'm not down with the gravel at all. For all the reasons Don said, I was trying to picture it as you were first describing it, I'm like, gravel.
If you don't mind me
yeah.
chiming in, I was involved in the project pretty significantly in the beginning, and part of the reason why gravel was so important is that this is a high traffic area. And so in the summer months, obviously, we get a lot of rain, and so at that point, a lot of that grass just slowly disappears and turns into mud. So then again, it's not easy for strollers and wheelchairs to or access that area. It also becomes a huge maintenance issue. In other beer gardens in our area, those that keep grass end up having to reseed it season after season after season. So this is why they seem to choose gravel over grass.
No, I get that. Why gravel over, like Dawn asked, the concrete?
You know, when we, and sorry if I chime in, the vendors prefer that. It's easy to maintain, it's easy to take care of, it ain't slippery like concrete. They literally prefer that crushed, almost TB gravel.
Okay.
So I actually have a question, if I may. But isn't this gonna cause some drainage issues, especially if it rains and all these little pebbles or rocks is just gonna go into the drainage?
It
No?
bonds tight.
No, it has not been an issue in many of the other beer gardens that we've gone and visited.
Yeah, and also I have visited a couple of beer gardens where the ground is actually like this type of bricks, the red bricks. They just use it also to avoid any of the seeding or the growing of those plants in between those corners. But it makes it also easy on the wheelchairs and strollers or anything else that maybe little kids even. So if someone falls or trips on gravel, is different on hard surface. So I have a concern with that as well.
Okay.
Back to me?
Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
Still got it.
So the bathroom. So what's going to happen to the existing building? What's the plan for that building?
There's a couple of different options for that. I mean, it can remain, and it can remain as facilities for use by the baseball diamond or additional capacity for restrooms. It's also, it allows the city options with respect to using the area on which that building's standing for other uses, whether it's for additional playgrounds or maybe even a splash pad, things that were anticipated as part of the Abendschein Park master plan. It allows some flexibility in terms of how the city chooses to develop additionally for the Abendschein Park area.
Oh, so keeping it and utilizing it some way,
Yeah, the plan right now is to keep it, although,
Okay.
I mean, it's not.
That's good.
It does allow some options. There's some utility for additional storage there.
Okay. Was there just I'm spitballing now because I'm totally down with this idea. Like giving it a facelift at any point if you really did want to utilize it to help match the new building. Because I just a thought. It's just a thought. That's all. That's all it is.
Sorry, my facial expression.
Think about it. And then the bathrooms are. The worst thing in my mind is you have this building and then we have an event so big you have to start wheeling in porta johns and making sure, like, you know, if that other building could be used as overflow bathrooms, that'd be great. And so we never have to see the porta johns out there. It would be nice if possible. So those are my thoughts, but I love it and I can't wait. And let's get that stage approved too. That's it for me.
Fred?
Okay, I have a few questions. Number one, the Frisbee course, will we interfere with that course with additional parking? Because if that parking goes south, which I'm assuming it's gonna go, doesn't that interfere a little bit?
Well, there may be some realignment of some of the holes. It does not, it won't displace
It
any of the
won't
holes.
displace, but I mean, you're gonna have to
You might have to realign some. Yes.
reconfigure that golf course, I think,
Yeah.
on that. And then the other question, in the city, who's gonna be responsible for overseeing the operation of this? Is it the
Of
parks?
the building or of the
No,
beer garden?
the building and the beer garden and leasing it out or renting it out to people who wanna use it?
Yeah, absolutely. Similar to what happens at Lake Vista or Miller Park. I mean, there is still a recreation component in terms of facility rentals that is housed within the city. Granted that much of the recreation, from a programming perspective, has been moved over to the school district, but we still retain the facilities rental and some other rental as part of, essentially it's part of the tourism entity right now.
So they will be responsible. Now, the other question, is there gonna be a problem with a liquor license for that facility dealing with the beer garden?
Yeah, I mean, there shouldn't be, again, the city has had pop-up beer gardens at Abendschein Park before, at Lake Vista Park. Those are all issues that we are confident that our city clerk will guide us through, and we don't anticipate any problems with that.
Okay. And then the other is the floodplain. We're right next to that pond. What happens if we get excess water?
Well, the pond's designed not to have excess water. I mean, the pond is designed to accommodate the stormwater. When that pond was developed, it was then developed in anticipation of additional development in Avonshine Park. I mean, there's nothing to say that the parameters of a certain storm don't exceed that, in which case there'll be a number of facilities that probably won't perform as intended. But the design of that pond did accommodate all the development that you're seeing as part of the proposal they see.
So we designed it for the 100-year flood.
I'll let Ashley answer that. That's sitting a little too deep for me.
No, I think
No
you
pun
summarized it great. Yeah, I mean, those ponds were designed for future improvements at the park, and that was all taken into consideration, so the ponds can handle it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Jossie?
No additional questions for me?
Okay. I got a couple, maybe Lori or Leah can handle this in parks discussion. So, kitchen, is that a full kitchen? Or is it nothing more than a refrigerator like we got at Lake Vista? Because in my opinion, we completely underbilled Lake Vista.
It's more of a warming kitchen. It does allow for things like a sandwich preparation. It doesn't have a hood, and you're not going to. This is not going to be a Lake Park bistro. This is going to be something where.
No, not looking for it, but I don't want them grilling outside the building like they have to at the other concessions as well. And same with Lake Vista. I don't even think you can warm there. They have.
No, you can't.
They have no capacity there.
No, and so just talking to some of the vendors, what they were looking for was more of a kitchen setup like this. Warming kitchen, a dish rack, or a dishwasher, and then a pass-through. So you can see that actually on the left-hand side of that wall, next to the kitchen.
Yeah, so it is not a full kitchen.
Okay.
Did we do
Leah, you gotta come up.
It's more of a conversation with my colleagues here.
Name and address.
I'm Leah Schreiber-Johnson, 9024 South York Court, Chair of Parks and Recreation Commission for 4 years and going. We discussed grease traps to some extent. Where did we land on grease traps?
I believe they're in there. Again, I can't definitively answer that.
Yeah, I recall us landing, last time I remember is that we landed on grease traps with the intent of just having that opportunity for someone to bring in the equipment they might need and have the proper way to dispose of it.
Yeah, to the mayor's point, I mean, we don't want to be penny wise and pound foolish on this building or any building. We want to certainly design it with appropriate contingencies in place should the needs change, but we didn't want to, cost considerations, principal among them, led us to kind of go away from developing a commercial kitchen as part of this facility.
Okay. Yeah, and again, I'm no expert. It doesn't have to be a full commercial kitchen, but it should provide those options, going forward. And then secondly, as long as you're up here, I want to get back to the bathrooms, both men and women. Is there enough facility in here? We're talking about a high usage beer garden, and as Don said, I mean, we got overflow at the existing concession stand, but we don't want to be dragging porta potties in here. From the men's point of view, looking pretty light there.
Well, I mean,
I would beg to differ. Women are usually the ones that need
Usually, but
the debate ensues here. No, I think that certainly the facility is designed for code to accommodate the indoor spaces. Are there going to be times where you have a festival or something that require additional facilities? Yeah, probably. But I don't think that you want to design that facility to accommodate the maximum. I think that given what we expect to be a beer garden, which is very successful, but extending throughout the season, you probably won't get those huge peaks that you would if it's just a pop-up, and that would kind of even out the flow of crowds. again, the building is designed to accommodate that, and Don, you're absolutely correct. I mean, if there's additional capacity, we've got that existing building there. But will there be times that we need to bring in additional facilities? I guess we hope so, because that would mean that the facility is being used and the park's being used for the purposes that it was intended to be a community gathering spot.
Okay. And then lastly, seasonal storage. I would imagine they're going to drag tables, chairs, things like that in throughout the season. I would think if they open in May or whenever they choose to open, that stuff will stay out. Is that a good use of that facility space when we're building per square foot, rather than haul that stuff in and out twice a year to DPW and utilize that space as floor space and make something bigger,
Sure.
whether it's...
I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
So one of the great things that the vendors that we were speaking with, they said that they really enjoyed having that storage space because a lot of times they also need to have access chairs and tables for those peak moments. And then on top of that, at the beginning of the season, they tend to order a lot of beer and a lot of glassware and whatever to carry on through the season. So they do need that additional space for storage. And as the season goes through, that stuff slowly moves out, and then they can start bringing in their tables and et cetera for the winter and store it in there.
I wouldn't call it significant, but there is a retail component to the vendor that we visited where they had glassware that they shipped in from Germany that they would sell along with.
Would that be an option, whether it's the same vendor or a different vendor, to have that retail thing?
Sure, I think that's a fair question, and it's also fair to suggest that, I mean, it's storage space, whether it's storage for a vendor or whether it's storage for the Parks Department, and some of the things that, some of the equipment that may be outside during the winter. I think that, you know, it is useful in that capacity. I mean, this building is being designed certainly with a beer garden in mind. And the agreement that is put in place with any potential vendor has to recognize that this building is being, there's certain elements of the design of the building that are being custom to the use as a beer garden. And at least it's staff's expectation that those discussions with respect to the lease agreement will recognize that this is a brand new building that's being constructed, and that there's, if you want to use certain portions of the building, you have to compensate the city.
Okay.
You're not going to get free rental space.
No. Okay. No, it sounds like Parks did a pretty nice job all in all. So the beer hall space at 1,100 square feet, is that adequate for other things that we would do in the winter time? Say the warming house, say a winter market for the farmers.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a fully, climate controlled building. It's not it's a Four Seasons building. We're actually running a gas line to the building to allow for a gas fireplace. So I think it'd be a wonderful location for some of the things that you mentioned there. And recognize that you could inside, totally inside, and recognize that there's garage doors which can open up to the outside. And I didn't mention, which is one of the real cool things about it.
Yeah, that is kind of cool.
Shame on me for not mentioning that. But inside, seated at tables, you could seat 75. If it's strictly chairs, it's 160. So it's a pretty big space.
Okay.
Yeah, but don't think that a market could go in there.
No, I wouldn't think so.
No, you could get maybe 8 vendors in there, and no one's coming to a market for 8 vendors.
No, I was, Milliger is utilized as a spot, but it's got to be double this, if not 3 times. So, anyways.
One other feature that I didn't hear you mention that I think is pretty cool is the outdoor beer vendor window.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Okay.
You can kind of see it in this area. I mean, what we observed at the existing beer garden was that the majority of the transactions took place outside. You line up outside, and it goes through a counter service that is outside. We allow for actually both as part of this. There's a pass-through window immediately on the south side of the building for folks who want to get access that way, or you want to come inside in the beer hall itself, there's a counter space there. So again, this was something, and speaking with the vendor, I said, well, the bulk of the sales take place outside, and it's a beer garden, people want to be outside. And really, the space undercover, well, it's nice when you need it. And if it's nice in Wisconsin, you want to be outside.
If you don't mind me elaborating a little bit on that, there's actually 2 pass-through doors on the south elevation. The one closest to the storage area is actually meant for where you go and get your beer mugs, and where you have opportunity to get any merchandise. And so come up there, you go and do your beer mug rental, then you move over to the next window where you can go and get your beer, and then you'll see the removable beer taps. This kind of reduces some of the queuing that sometimes occurs during peak times.
Okay. I'm glad you kept the versatility, so if beer ever goes out of fashion, which I don't know, it can be used for other things. It's nice to see. It looks like the Parks Commission did a really nice job with the layout. So.
It wasn't just us, we had great support.
No, and it's important that, it sounds funny, but that you do go explore other things and you find out what's working and what's not. And the gravel's a big thing. We went down there and it was all gravel, and we talked to the proprietors, and they were all about that. Yeah, because of the mud factor and everything else. So,
Doug, don't hate me. I'm bringing up the bathrooms again, because all I'm hearing is this is meant to be a beer garden. This is a beer garden, beer. We know what comes with that. I'd rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it. And yeah, if we have a big event, yes, you're right. You're probably going to need to bring in something. But if the core thing that you're going to be using this for, you realize like, oh damn, well, now we're going to have to bring porta-johns every time we open the beer garden. I don't think anybody here would be happy with that.
And I would
think about it. Yeah, think about it. I'd rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it. Honestly, think about putting a couple extra for men and women.
Yeah, blow out that wall another couple feet.
That's a fear of mine. Think about it.
Does the Plan Commission have any recommendations for toilets per, capacity?
Yeah. No, but yeah, we if there's something that needs to be done to get that recommendation.
I guess the answer to that question is it's developed per code and per the different rules of assembly. Okay. So there's some thought put into that right away. I don't know that there's anything specific for the frequency associated with a beer garden.
The demands of.
I would just go, you know what? I would just go with experience, man. I've been to a lot of beer gardens. I'm just saying. I've been there.
So, Don, we've been to Whitnall a million times. I don't remember ever going to a beer garden, especially outside one, where I had to wait in line for the ladies' room.
Okay.
You have to wait in line for the beer. Those lines queue really long, but I'm not sure. I truly don't remember.
And the other thing that I think is important to keep in mind is that the intent of this beer garden, should we go forward with the vendor that we've been working with thus far, this beer garden would be open every day. Mm-hmm. It's not like it's going to be open just on the weekends or just once a week or once a month or for special occasions. This is a 7 days a week, maybe 6, thing that's going to be open from afternoon until evening. So the rush that we're accustomed to in Oak Creek when it comes to a beer garden is not likely to sustain.
So you could equate it almost to a restaurant.
That's exactly what I'm thinking about. It's more like a restaurant, and I'm thinking about all the restaurants that I've been to in Oak Creek. I was just at Bel Air last night. Only 3 or 4 toilets in Bel Air, and I've never waited in line.
Okay. No, I'll trust the judge.
I agree. That's fine. Yeah, I didn't think of it that way. I wouldn't equate Bel Air to a beer garden, but I see what you're saying. Yeah, it's not gonna be a 4-day thing like we're used to, where everyone's coming cramming in there for 4 days.
The whole city of Oak Creek isn't
I'm
competing
glad
for
you
beer.
brought that up. Right? Yeah. Well, yeah, you're right. That's how it was.
Yeah.
It is. Okay. Yeah. I know you guys did your research. It's just.
But like I said, I'm no bathroom design expert, so I certainly wasn't the one deciding how many toilets belong in that bathroom. So if there's a suggestion or a recommendation or a history with building in Oak Creek where we recognize that there's a deficient number of spaces, I'm sure we'd be open to.
Well, you know what? To that
reviewing that with the builder.
point, I've been to the beer gardens or pop-ups many times, but now for the life of me, I can't remember what we were doing for bathrooms. Did we have a couple porta-johns, a line of them? Because that would actually be a good, does anyone remember what we had for bathrooms?
Actually, I think we just used the existing concessions. booth.
Yeah, we did.
Okay, yeah, I guess if.
Which was a
to that.
mess.
Yeah,
It's a long
and we would still have that as an
Still
overflow.
have that.
Okay.
And maybe just to give you a little anecdotal reassurance, Pets Beer Garden down in Kenosha, thank you, I always want to say Racine. They started off with the same setup as our mobile or our pop-up beer garden. They only had 2 bathrooms, and what they expanded to is basically what we're including in this design. And they right now don't feel like they need it anymore, but we're hoping to have more business too, so.
Okay, no, great, you guys thought about it, excellent, thank you.
I mean, I suppose, should we come to a point where we've got great success and we need to expand, we have that second that building that already has plumbing, where we could blow out that and build that into a bigger bathroom, should we really need it. And that's something that we could do later and test the validity of the building rather than overbuilding at the beginning and putting money into bathrooms that we didn't need.
I'll pre-approve that right now. Just in case.
And really, the economics of the lease suggest that, and this is not certainly anything of particular concern to the Plan Commission, but if this thing is so successful that it requires additional infrastructure investment, that's going to be reflected in the lease payments to the city, and we can invest some of that capital back into improving the barrier.
True. All right. Just one thing to note, the fence, we do have standards here, and we like the masonry and everything else, but the fence just looks a little less dressy than normal.
And the iron pot.
Yeah, we beat everybody up over their trash enclosures here. So
It's going to be a real nice trash enclosure.
it will be. It will be. No, it's, you know what? Really glad to see this happening. This is much needed. I think the community's going to appreciate it. And again, it's a multi-purpose building, so other things can happen there as needed. So.
And it's not part of what you're approving necessarily right now, but
No.
there's been great discussion, and I think there's a ton of opportunity for future phasing and kind of creating additional amenities around this building in the future should the success be what we expect it to be.
Great.
I will say this, if you're gonna put benches out there and what have you, we did a wonderful job at Drexel Town Square. But the more and more I travel, everybody uses natural concrete or rock products, and rocks are literally the benches. And I was at Miller Park this weekend, in AmFam Field now. But they put basically their concrete blocks for benches with the symbols embossed in them in the concrete. And they're red, and that is it. And they sit there year round, the whole thing, and there's no maintenance to them going forward. So, just thought as you're dealing with parks and things like that. So, environmental friendly is the first guy would have said. So. I guess that's it, other than we need to make a motion on F.
Since
Fire's got a problem, can't have it.
Good evening, Commissioner.
Sorry, Mike.
Fire. I think just in Carrie's absence also, I think it'd be good to mention that the trash enclosure will be of non-combustible materials. And the building is going to be fully sprinkled, so that the water service that's being provided in will provide the sprinkler system and for our needed hydrant.
Will it need a hydrant up there?
Yes.
Yeah. So the water service we have the joint development. There's crossing over that line will be looped. So the water service will be the flow rates will be sufficient enough to support that service and extra bathrooms if those are ever needed.
We'll try to get an infrastructure grant for that.
It's additional cost, but it's the right thing to do.
It is the right
We're
thing
gonna
to
do it.
do. Yeah, I hadn't thought about that because we normally don't have hydrants within the park.
Based on where the structure is located, our municipal code does provide that a hydrant has to be within a certain distance or location from that structure, and the occupancy factor of that structure would require the sprinkler system as well. If it's over 100 people with assembly, which I think Doug mentioned that it would, inside that structure would go over that threshold, so it will be sprinkled.
Okay.
Any other questions?
No.
No? Thanks.
Thank you, Chief. Okay, leaves us for a motion on that.
Since I hassled them on the bathrooms, I'll make a motion.
Throw that in there.
That the Plan Commission approves the site and building plan submitted by Kirk Keller, Plunkett, Racish, Architects, PRA LLP on behalf of the City of Oak Creek for the Abernshine Park Pavilion located at 1321 East Drexel Avenue with the following conditions. 1, that all relevant code requirements remain in effect. 2, that all mechanical equipment shall be screened from view. 3, that grading, drainage, utility, and stormwater management plans are approved by the city engineer prior to the issuance of building permits. The issuance of building permits. 4, no signs are included in this approval. All detailed sign plans shall be submitted for review and approval by the Plan Commission prior to submission of sign permit applications. 5, that exterior lighting and landscape plans will be approved by the Director of Community Development prior to submission of permit applications. 6, that all revised plans, site, building, landscape, etc. are submitted in digital format for review by the Department of Community Development prior to submission of permit applications.
Seifert seconds.
Roll call, beginning with you, Fred.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler, aye.
Hannah, aye.
Grillo, aye.
Kipchinsky, aye.
Kavich, aye.
Guzekowski, aye.
Oldani, aye.
Okay, before we adjourn, we're getting to the third week of the market. Dawn?
Good, yes. Third week is going to start this week. It's going extremely well.
And maybe if I could take this opportunity,
Yep.
this will be Lori's final meeting with us.
Oh, that's right.
Lori's moving on to another position at the City of Village, City of Mequon? City of Mequon. So thank you so much for the time you spent with us, and we wish you well in your future endeavors.
Yes,
Thank you.
for sure, Lori. It's
I
been a
do
pleasure.
Thank you. I just want to say thank you so much for teaching me so much. I had never worked in local government before, and so this has been one heck of an experience, and I've learned so much from you all, and thank you so much for being so patient with me as I learn. So,
You know, it ain't
thank
always
you.
as smooth in other places.
Yeah.
It's a little forewarning.
But no, thank you for all you've done. We do appreciate all the work. So third week, we got growing vendors. We got beautiful weather on tap, so great way to kick off Memorial Day weekend. Visit the market.
Yeah. We also are doing a public art project, the community canvas. Leslie and I are painting in the community room on Thursday night from 6 to 8 o'clock to help with that project. So I would like, if you guys have not turned in your canvas yet, I want to see you all there.
I'm
Look at them
done
like, what
already.
are you
My
talking
homework's
about?
done.
You're done, yes. I will explain. But yeah, Thursday across the hall.
Okay.
And she has, she said, sip and snack. I assume
Not kind of
it's not the beer garden stuff.
And just one more thing to be aware of at the farmers market, there is a WIC program that goes on.
There is?
And there's a match going on for those people that are in need. So please come on out. It's a very generous match.
Yep, thanks, Doc. IEBW, we match every $20, we give you $40. So.
Double from last year, right?
Double from last year.
So you can get out fresh produce, you support the local farmers, and you're getting healthy stuff for you and your family. So great public service going on there all season long.
Yep.
So, all right, that'll get us to adjournment.
Carrillo moves to adjourn at 7:55.
Hannah, seconds.
Roll call beginning with Chauncey.
Chandler, aye.
Hannah, aye.
Carrillo, aye.
Kipchinsky, aye.
Kavich, aye.
Guzekowski.
Oldani, aye.
Seifert, aye.
All right. Thank you all. Thank you, commissioners. Thank you, staff.
See you.
Okay. Lori, good luck.